Flying wings have always had an allure to them that other aircraft simply do not. Even today, after all these years, there's something about seeing an aircraft without any real fuselage that just looks so cool. From the massive B to Spirit to the tiny models that can fit in your hand. But flying wings weren't just relegated to the realm of fantasy or science fiction. In fact, during the Cold War, America came close to fielding a flying wing fighter with the Northrop YF-23. This black sheep in the lineup of the Advanced Tactical Fighter competition was certainly an odd choice for the Pentagon, but it almost made the cut. But what makes this aircraft so interesting is how it relates to modern flying wings. A lot of the advancements made in the YF-23 can be seen in today's upcoming demonstrators. So let's dive into this aircraft and see what happened to the flying wing fighters. In 1975, the United States began the F-15 program. By the end of the 1980s, these highly capable air superiority fighters were patrolling the skies. It didn't take long before international competitors began catching up to America's new favorite fighter. Soon the Pentagon knew they needed to field a new aircraft, one that would enter service in the 1990s. Soon after, the Advanced Tactical Fighter competition began with two finalists, the YF-22 and the YF-23. The YF-22, which would later become the F-22 Raptor, was designed by Lockheed Martin with General Dynamics. The YF-23, on the other hand, was designed by Northrop with McDonnell Douglas. The YF-23 was one of the most unique aircraft ever built, with no fuselage to speak of and only a pair of vertical stabilizers. This flying wing fighter looks straight out of a sci-fi movie. The Advanced Tactical Fighter program was a fly-off between these two aircraft. And even though the F-22 ultimately won, the F-23 was still quite impressive. In fact, it remains the only aircraft to ever beat the F-22 in a dogfight, albeit virtually. See, the F-23 was superior in many ways to the F-22. In a turn fight, the F-23 could easily win against the F-22. However, the F-22 could outclimb the F-23, which would allow it to get outside of the F-23's weapon range. After some time, both aircraft would find themselves in a situation where neither could effectively dogfight the other. Eventually, the F-22's advanced PG-77 radar was able to detect the F-23, and it fired a long-range missile at the F-23, forcing the F-23 to break off, and thus losing the dogfight. The F-23 was certainly an amazing machine, and perhaps if it had won the ATF competition, we would see flying wings as common as the F-16 today. A huge advantage of a flying wing design is the lack of a fuselage. This means less surface area, which results in less drag. Less drag equals more speed. There's also another advantage to this design. Since the pilot sits directly behind the intakes, forward visibility is much improved. Now, of course, you lose some visibility out the back, but overall, this aircraft had excellent visibility thanks to its flying wing design. With this being the case, why did the F-22 win? Well, it comes down to three main factors. In the end, the YF-23 lost the competition, but it was still a resounding success. What Northrop showed the world was that a flying wing design was viable. They proved that this design could house cutting-edge technology.
No?
And they proved that a flying wing design could perform better than an aircraft with a traditional fuselage. Just look at this view of the cockpit. How awesome does this look? Imagine being in this position, sitting in a cockpit that's fully encased inside of a flying wing. When the F-23 was revealed to the public, people went wild. It was unlike any fighter ever built, and so attention immediately turned to this unique design. There were talks that the YF-23 might be used as the basis for a new stealth bomber. Maybe it could be used as a platform for an advanced surveillance drone. The possibilities for the flying wing seemed endless. But unfortunately, the cost of the F-23 was too high to justify building a prototype, let alone going into production. But this did not stop development completely. After the F-22 was selected over the F-23, work continued on the flying wing designs. And in 2007, the X-47C, a subsonic flying wing UAV, was revealed to the public. This demonstrator was built to show the world that America could still produce cutting-edge technology. Not only that, but the X-47C was a flying testbed for new materials and technologies. Some of the data gathered during the X-47CS testing may actually be used in the new B-21 Raider. Speaking of the B-21, It's hard not to notice the similarities between the B-21 and the YF-23. Obviously, the B-21 has more of a fuselage than the YF-23, but the resemblance is uncanny. Coincidence? Perhaps not. Could the B-21 actually use some of the technologies and data gathered from the YF-23 and the X-47C? It's possible. Both the YF-23 and the X-47C used composite materials to reduce weight and increase performance. This was especially important for the flying wing designs, since the center of gravity is already far back from the fuselage. Moving the center of gravity any farther back would make the aircraft dangerously unstable. The B-21, on the other hand, uses advanced manufacturing techniques to keep its weight down. While it may not use composite materials, it very well could use lighter materials to make up for its slightly more substantial fuselage. Another similarity between the B-21 and the YF-23 is the engines. The YF-23 used a pair of F113 turbofans. These were extremely reliable and kept the weight down. But the B-21 uses a pair of adaptive cycle engines. These engines are perfect for a stealth bomber, since they can switch between high-performance turbofan and turbojet modes. But again, the similarities are uncanny. And another thing that is interesting to note is that the B-21 has no obvious means of controlling the aircraft. Where are the control surfaces? On a normal aircraft, you can identify the control surfaces instantly. But with the B-21, there aren't any. This is similar to the F-23, which had no control surfaces except for a small set of ailerons at the wingtips. How do you control such an aircraft? Well, the solution lies within the engines. The engines themselves can independently change thrust vector, allowing the aircraft to maneuver. So what happened to flying wings? Well, they never really went anywhere. The X-47C is still flying today, and it will continue to push the envelope of this amazing design. But what about manned flying wings? Are they still being worked on? Yes, they are. The X-47D is currently being worked on, and it will be a hypersonic flying wing demonstrator. Dude, this is Northrop's website. You can see it here. This image was taken from their website. Now, this is a testbed for future technologies. Technologies that will likely find their way onto the next generation of American fighters. If the X-47D works as intended, then the next step is simple. Add a cockpit, and you have yourself a flying wing fighter. As for the YF-23 itself, this amazing airframe is now on display at the National Museum of the United States Air Force. Go check it out. It really is an amazing machine. And who knows, maybe someday it will be joined by a new flying wing fighter.